Okay, here we go. So welcome everybody in MMJ-390 and sports media. Of course, I'm John Mark Dempsey, and with me is Charlie Chitwood. And a lot of you probably are familiar with the voice of Charlie Chitwood, if not the name, because Charlie for a number of years has been the play-by-play broadcaster for the A&M Commerce Lions football and men's and women's basketball teams. And so we wanted to have Charlie as our first guest of what we hope will be several guests in this class. So Charlie, welcome.
Thank you, John. It's so good to be here again. Always like talking to your guys and girls.
Very often has visited this class and others before. So let's, I don't want to start off with the question of how did you get into sports broadcasting, or what made you interested in sports broadcasting. If you want to get into that on your own, that's fine. But when you're broadcasting a Lion football game or a Lion basketball game, what are you trying to accomplish? What is your goal as you're describing that game over KETR radio and any other station?
Well, my first hope in every instance is that I am describing what is happening in a venue for an audience that can't see what is happening in that venue. It's a little bit different world these days with audio streaming and, like Zoom meetings. So there's a difference between radio and television play-by-play or commentary work. So
what's the difference? I don't want to get you off the path too badly there, but what's the difference in radio and television?
Well, with television, you don't have to explain every single step or move that is made simply because the audience is watching it just like you are. They're watching it from a different angle more than likely, but what you can do from the floor to fill in is like if somebody is on a breakaway up the court in a basketball game. You don't have to talk through every step. You let the picture tell the story, and then you can add something, and he goes up and jams it through with a flourish, and then tell the impact of that play. That's kind of where I would go. As in strictly in radio, you don't need every step, but as he's making that 8-second, 5-second run up the court, however long it takes with the ball, oh, what has he done? This is what he's done. And here's what he's about to do. Yes, he finishes.
You have to be very descriptive because the audience on the radio, you cannot see what you can see. So you are their eyes.
You're trying, imagine if like Spud Webb or Muggsy Bogues, describing a slam dunk by one of those guys would be a little bit different than you would for, say, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Right.
There's just other things to say in describing it. It's not hard for somebody that's 7'2" to reach up and jam it through. Spud Webb's my side, man. We're 5'7", and he could dunk.
Now, how have you changed your approach at all with the advent of video? Because more and more, even at the Division II level of sports, people are able to watch the game streaming on video. So has that caused you to change your approach at all?
Yes. And it's the one thing that I try to be very conscious of. And because I screwed up once, it was off air, but you're never off air. Your microphone is always hot, right, even during the breaks of a basketball or a football game, because the stream, hey, that camera is still down there and your audio is making a shorter trip to the camera. And that doesn't change a bit. There's nobody there to flip you on or off like you have on the boards at the radio station. So the main thing I would say, first, foremost, last, and always, is remember it's a hot mic.
And it's always true, but even more so now with streaming video and people watching during what otherwise might be a commercial break on radio. Talk a little bit about preparation. What do you do to get ready for a broadcast?
Okay, well, let's start with a game that we hope will be played on the 3rd of September between the Lions and the reigning national champion, West Florida Argonauts. Can't wait for that. But I've already started by pulling spring training rosters for both clubs. And I haven't got on the Lions yet because I saved the best part for last. But with the Argonauts, I'm breaking it down by who's returning. I've gotten as far as who's in the secondary back from last year's national championship team. And looking at their numbers, what did these guys that are returning and were major parts of that championship, what did they do in the championship game? So I've got all kinds of little notes and things that are starting to build up and pile up. And then those are, they're almost separate from the normal statistical outlook you would give, because for a broader audience and in a broader picture, he ran for 1,100 yards last year, but man, Minnesota State stopped him in the championship game. He only ran for 25. So, you've got time to do that. Now, when you get into the season, it's a lot more compressed. So you find out that, you having your stats, having them updated, it's really a lot of here's the whole picture and then here's what he's done for us lately. Or in women's basketball, here's what she's done for us lately. And for the opposing team. So I think, bigger picture, the snapshot is the most recent activity of how they have performed, the student athletes have performed. And I think, having a little bit of both is a well-rounded intro to a contest.
It's a lot of work to be familiar with pretty much all of the players on both teams.
Oh,
so
man.
You can talk intelligently about them for, in the case of a football game, 3 hours or more.
It is harder, and it's taken me probably longer to get accustomed to the different ways I have available to me. I mean, now I can take a roster, and while I'm looking at the page, I can just go over and say, well, I want to see all the DBs. Let's list them by group. And it's just, spreadsheet stuff. Click at the top, and it sorts everything out for you.
And even more so now, I found, but this is somewhat off the subject, but still related. Video is so readily available on these teams now. We, myself and Kevin Jeffries for KETR broadcast high school football, and we find that we can find a lot of video even on Class 3A high school teams.
Oh, sure.
You have an opportunity to see the opposing team on video much more easily than you used to do.
Yep. And considering the kind of year my dogs are supposed to have this fall, maybe we don't want them to see a thing.
Charlie also broadcast high school football for Jefferson High School, right?
How this all started.
Yeah. So he started with that, and he's advanced to A&M Commerce. And was it 2016, Charlie, that you and Brock Callaway were the Texas Associated Press Broadcasters of the Year?
We had the play-by-play of the year, and I think I believe it was. And because it was either I think it was the year before I picked up another one after the Natty. It had to be, yeah, because we won the Natty. And
right.
So,
right. What about, and again,
you guys have won more of those than me and Brock.
We've won one time anyway, that I recall. What's the difference in what you do as the play-by-play broadcaster and what Brock Callaway does as your color commentator?
Brock is insightfully filling the gaps. When there is, say a long incomplete pass. You've got those times when everybody's got to get back to the line of scrimmage, into the huddle, however, and he kind of explains a little bit. Sometimes, in the play-by-play, you are on the ball. You must follow the ball wherever the ball is and who has the ball. If that person throws the ball downfield, you might not be able to tell what receiver is able to snag it right away. Brock, a lot of times, as I'm continuing the play, I know it's a lion. I know, we might catch the number before he goes in, but Brock's waiting right there to clarify identity, that kind of thing, or the actual spot from when the dust settles, because it's a lot easier to do after than during.
You can, you have to watch his play-by-play person. As you say, you have to be totally engaged in that play while it's going on. He can be a little broader in how he watches the play and pick up some details that you probably are not going to be able to do because, as you say, you are so focused on the ball itself.
He has the luxury of watching the line of scrimmage a lot more so, in a running play for obvious reasons, and passing, he can tell, the Lions are giving Miklo Smalls great protection right now, but he can also see if somebody gets through and, so-and-so found an edge and came in on the right side. Miklo was able to see a little something over his shoulder and stepped away from it or didn't. So he can really fill in the gaps and throw some extra paint.
What are your favorite memories in having done sports broadcasting for A&M Commerce and other schools? And what does this all mean to you? I know you enjoy it. You do it because you are paid to do it, but I know also you love to do it.
I could never say that I love to do this because I'm paid to do it. That's just not how it works. I've got a job to support my wife and I and the 4 dogs and whatever else we want to do, and the travel within the Lone Star Conference and wherever the Lions go, that never hurts my feelings because I'm a road guy. I love Texas, and I get to see a lot of it in these travels, whether we're in the state or leaving it. I don't know. I played team sports growing up, baseball and softball at the park as a kid, and then in grade school, baseball and football. In high school, it was football and track. College, back to baseball and football one more year, and then rugby afterwards. Everybody that's involved in sport with a team that they follow, it's easier for the network guys to have that real neutral stance when they get in there. And Brock and I, we don't try to be just desperate homers by any means, but people know that we're pulling for the Lions to win. And when you've had a really good game to call, win, lose, or draw, you're still jacked up. And, I get home from a basketball game 2 hours after it's ended if I drive home to Jefferson. I'm up for another 2 or 3 hours if it was a good game, just because, it's like, I can't wait to see what happens next. So
was the 2017 national championship for A&M Commerce, was that the high point of your broadcasting career, would you say?
Well, certainly for the, what was riding on that. I have called 3 contests that were national championships of one variety or another. There was an NCCAA women's title that I called in just my first year of college basketball or college sports in 2001 with the ETBU Lady Tiger basketball team. They were in their 3rd straight trip to the national championship game, and they lost it for the 3rd straight time. I called East Texas Baptist softball championship run in 2010. That was the last work I did for the Tigers there. And then, of course, the run in 2017 that culminated in another ring. The ring everybody wants.
That was an incredible season, and you guys.
It was the game that made it all was the Central Washington game. Yeah. If you had to ask me a favorite game, you have to go back a few. Now, there's no way. I've called 2 games that were anything like that, and one was in 03. ETBU had to beat Mary Hardin Baylor by all 7 points of a touchdown and extra point to win a 3-way tiebreaker and represent the American Southwest Conference in the Division III playoffs. And lo and behold, down by 3 touchdowns at halftime. Does that sound familiar? The Tigers came back, scored on a 78-yard touchdown pass with 8 seconds left. So that was when the clock stopped when he crossed the goal line. That's even a little more room to spare than what the Lions had against Central Washington to tie the game and get into overtime. But those Tigers scored, and then here's the wild thing. Mary Hardin-Baylor could have kicked a field goal, lost the game in overtime, but they would have had the tiebreaker by the point differential and would have gone on to the playoffs had they kicked a field goal and lost. They went for the win. Gotta love it. You know, that's what you play for. And we intercepted a pass on 3rd down. They didn't get another opportunity to think about what they ought to do.
It's amazing how you still remember those details.
Oh, gosh.
So many years later.
Oh, yeah.
We need to wrap this up.
Sure.
For someone that might be thinking about a career in sports media, not everybody has to have the same skills because there's different jobs. Not everybody's a play-by-play broadcaster. But in general, what skills do young people need to develop to have a career in sports media?
Read about the history of the game, get into the online sport, the media guides. You know, we used to have stacks of them. You still do. I still do, but they're all online now. And get in there and do some homework, especially if it's somebody you're not familiar with. One of the things I always loved about doing baseball at any level is having the Encyclopedia of Minor League Baseball at my hand. And, you know, there used to be the East Texas leagues, the Paris, the Red River leagues. There's a lot of history of sport, particularly in bat and ball, that go on for years that, beyond the campus you're on.
Paris Red Peppers.
The Red Snappers. The Paris Snappers. Red Snap was the manager.
I thought it was Red Peppers. All right, I stand corrected.
The Snapper.
So reading is developing your knowledge.
Develop your knowledge, develop your ability to speak. So, and a good vocabulary really helps, because if you're at a ball game and one batter after another is hitting a line drive to right field, you don't want to describe them the same way.
You have to develop a vocabulary to do what you do. Because as you say, you can't use the same language over and over again. You have to have a very broad and deep
learn the jargon of the sport you are calling.
And again, reading does contribute to the development of vocabulary.
That's
Charlie,
right.
Thank you for the time. It's enjoyable. And of course, again, Charlie is the play-by-play broadcaster on KETR 88.9, the University FM station for A&M Commerce football, men's and women's basketball. Thanks, Charlie.
Great to be here. Go Lions.
There you go. Thank
All
you.
right.